Alright guys, I wanted to do another deck tech today. Uh, I think I'm going to do this as my theme because I like building, around fun names or some fun themes. I call this deck the Time Paradox. So let's get into it. So these are the points in the deck. It is mostly a Time Vault deck here. We're doing a lot of work with Time Vault, which makes sense. Time Vault is 7 points. That is a lot. And the other things that we're doing work around what Time Vault enables. So, Transmute Artifact, easy way to get Time Vault or any other piece. It can find a Paradox Engine if that's what you're looking for. The Wishclaw Talisman as well. Lets us find whatever missing piece. If we give this to our opponent, doesn't really matter because we found the other piece of our win con that allows us to untap it. And if you aren't aware of this combo, we'll get into it when we're in the pieces. Then our last point is Tolarian Academy, which again works with a lot of what we're doing here, making artifacts, making a lot of mana. So these are our points: 7, 1, 1, 1, and I think there's some variations you can do here. This is what I went with because I think there's a lot of synergy going on, and it allows us to do a couple different things. So let's talk about some of the pieces of the deck. All right, let's talk about some of the lands in this deck. There are 33. Which might seem a little bit low. We'll get to that in a second, but a lot of what our lands do work with Tolarian Academy or have some importance. We have 6 artifact lands, and that's kind of what inspired me to build this deck. We have a couple new ones in the Tango Pool Bridge. These are from Modern Horizons 2. Indestructible, enters tapped, but the main thing here is it's an artifact land. Thorngrim Bridge, same thing. It's an artifact land. And Treasure Vault, did not notice this until someone pointed it out to me, but it is also an artifact land, which is why it is in here. It can make treasure as well, which can mean it's multiple artifacts, but it's at least one. So we have these artifact lands, which work with a lot of what we're trying to do. And then a couple utility lands here. Deserted Temple allows us to untap Tolarian Academy, get some extra mana off there. Same with Minamo. Tolarian Academy is legendary, which allows you to untap a legendary permanent, the Minamo. Inventor's Fair as well lets you tutor for something, an artifact card specifically, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then some that we'll get to a little bit later as well. Forbidden Orchard. Whenever you tap it, you give your opponent a 1/1. They just have to take a 1/1, and you get any color. So, kind of helpful. And a Maze of Ith to kind of be a fog for one creature. You can keep removing it from combat. And then the Academy Ruins to be able to recycle artifacts back on top of our library. Then just some value lands here. Nothing too exciting going on other than the lands we've talked about. So maybe let's get into all the artifacts that we're running to help with our low land count of 33. So in this deck for our artifact suite, we're running 18 different artifact ramp spells, couple signets, couple talismans, Mind Stone, some of the bigger ones like Basalt Monolith for 3 mana, Thrawn Dynamo for 3 mana as well. Prismatic Lens, it is a mana rock, but it's also a color fixer if we need some extra colors. One thing I should note here is the Manascape Refractor. This has all activated abilities of all lands on the battlefield, yours and the opponent's. So in a pinch, it can act as a Tolarian Academy or anything else you needed to. And you can spend mana as any color if you want to activate it, so as a Minamo or something. Yeah, so these are the rocks that help buff our land count because we are running a lot of expensive spells, but these in particular work with Paradox Engine. It's been banned from Commander for a while now, so maybe if you're coming primarily from a Commander space, you're not sure. Every time we cast a spell, it untaps all of this mana for us, and then we can tap all the mana, cast another spell, untap all the mana. Basically, keeps generating mana for us and gives us some free. It basically turns all these rocks into free spells that we can just cast, or all our spells are cost less. That's, I guess, the easiest way I can mention it. All right, so what are the kinds of things we're doing with all this mana? All right, so here are more of the working parts of the deck. This is a search pile, this is a draw pile, and this is, kind of tangential to that. Some searches and a card that we're commonly searching for. I'm trying to get a little bit of the glare off. So some of our draws, put things back in the deck, are just efficient because we can easily discard artifacts. We play a couple wheel effects here. The Echo of Aeons, Echo of Eons, Windfall, and Time Spiral. All of these have some value in our deck, and again, just more draw spells. For some of our tutor spells, we have Muddle the Mixer to transmute for a 2 cost, like the Time Vault. Expedition Map to find any utility land we're looking for. Again, Word of Invention, often for a Time Vault. Lion Tutor for Time Vault, Wargate for Time Vault, Sylvan Scrying for Tolarian Academy or whatever, Reshape for Time Vault, and Reap and Sow also for Tolarian Academy. Now, a lot of the things that I have kind of been mentioning do regard to some of the lands. So we aren't always finding Tolarian Academy. Sometimes we are trying to find the Forbidden Orchard. Or if we're taking some damage, that Maze of Ith. And the reason we sometimes need to find those lands is for another plan of the deck, which is Oath of Druids. Oath of Druids, actually I'll put it in the center here. Oath of Druids is again a symmetrical effect. It seems like my last 2 decks are just all about symmetrical effects. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls fewer creatures than target opponent, the player may reveal cards from their library until they reveal a creature card. That player puts that creature into play and all the other revealed cards into their graveyard. So if our opponent doesn't have any creatures, we can search up the Forbidden Orchard, give them one, flip our deck into one of 2 creatures in the deck, which also happen to work well with large mana values, or the ability to make a large amount of mana. Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, this is where I was copying the Aeons from earlier, or Blightsteel Colossus. Now both of these are great finishers in the deck. We're playing a little mini combo with the Oath of Druids, which is Dragon Breath. Now, if you mill this when you're flipping cards over to the Oath of Druids, and then you put one of these creatures into play, this will equip. This will trigger, go into play, attach to this creature or Emrakul, and it gives them haste. That's the main reason we're playing it. We can Fire Breathe, but we don't really have any red sources in the deck. So all we're worried about is haste. These cost 6 or more, boom, haste, attack for 11 infect. Or boom, haste, annihilate 6, flying, trample. It doesn't actually have trample. Flying, annihilate 6. That's usually enough to get you the game. And you don't have to worry about the protection from colored spells. This is a trigger, and it will go into play, stay attached to it. It's never a spell. You're never casting Dragon's Breath targeting the Emrakul. So that is one of the things I built the deck around, with a nice Oath of Druids, so we have something secondary to just the Time Vault. Enlightened Tutor, fortunately, can find both. So yeah, that's the other part of the deck. Now let's see what kind of things we use with Time Vault. So Time Vault, part of the time paradox. One thing I found a while ago was the amount of things that you can do. So the easiest thing is, well, any spell you cast with these in play is going to untap Time Vault. And then you can take an extra turn. Cast another spell, it untaps. Take an extra turn. Obviously, it's pretty broken. I mean, Time Vault's pretty broken. That's why it's 7 points. But there's much easier ways to do it than resolving this 5-mana artifact. There's also the Manifold Key and Voltaic Key. I'll just scoop these to the side. Both of these are 1 tap, untap another artifact. So you cast Time Vault and it is tapped. Use 1 extra mana to untap it. Take an extra turn. You should be able to win the game from there with infinite turns. The other ones that work are Mirage Mirror or Tezzeret. These are pretty easy. So if Time Vault's in play, you can say, okay, Mirage Mirror, you're now a copy of the Time Vault, and then tap it, take an extra turn. Tezzeret can untap it. He can also search for Time Vault, put it into play, or any other piece you're missing. So that's a lot of the easy ways. One that I found you could do with the Rings of Brighthearth, which does provide infinite colorless mana if you have the Rings of Brighthearth. And what's the Basalt Monolith in play. But if you don't have infinite colorless mana, well, there's another thing you can do. So what you're going to want to do... Actually, let's talk about Time Vault for a second here. So if Time Vault's in play tapped, and my opponent passes to me, I have an option to skip my turn. If I skip my turn, I can untap it. This is how the card was meant to work, I suppose, fairly. I would untap. There would be no passing at priority. I never went to my untap step. I skipped my turn in order to untap this, so my opponent has no chance to respond if this is the thing that I wish to do. So if I skip my turn in this manner, and I've now manually untapped it, my opponent goes to their turn. I can say, okay, tap, I'm going to take an extra turn. And I have a Rings of Brighthearth in play, I'm going to pay 2. So I'm going to take 2 extra turns after your turn. At the end of that turn, your opponent's turn, what you can do is say, okay, I have two extra turns coming up plus my normal turn. So what I'm going to do is skip one of those turns to untap this. And then I'm going to tap it again in one of my extra turns, the next turn I'll actually go to. So I only have 1 turn left. I'll tap it, and then I can copy it. At which point, you're now back to 3 extra turns. So you can go infinite turn-wise with the Rings of Brighthearth as long as you have extra mana lying around. I thought it was a neat interaction when I was building a different version of this deck, and I liked it, so it's in here as well. Actually, I guess while we're talking about Planeswalkers with Tezzeret, I'll bring out a couple others that I have in the deck. Karn, the Scion of Urza. When you have all these artifact lands and random signets and talismans and whatever, treasure if you're making them, his -2 can make an 8/8 easily, which can win you the game or hold off whatever you need. And then his other 2 abilities are for card advantage. I think what you'll find is if you just -2 Karn twice, you will probably win the game without anything else, just attacking with a couple of 8/8s for a turn or 2. Narset Parter of Veils, it draws basically a lot of the cards in our deck, and it works with any of our wheel effects, meaning our opponent will discard their hand, they'll draw 1, we'll draw 7. putting us at a nice advantage. Oko, Thief of Crowns, he makes artifacts with food, so you can just keep making different artifacts to power up any artifact-related shenanigans you may have. But of course, you can elk anything your opponent's doing. Teferi, nice protection card, can bounce various things that are clogging up the board and giving you trouble. And I guess I can just easily move on to some of the utility spells here. So, Sensei's Divining Top, if you have a Paradox Engine, you can tap it, you can cast the spell, tap it in response to the untap trigger, or if you're casting instants, so you tap it, put the trigger on the stack, cast some instant, it untaps with the Paradox Engine, you tap it again, draw it, so you'll draw this and the top card of your deck. Treasure Map. One of the reasons I really like this is once you do flip it, you've scryed couple, given yourself some card selection, you're able to flip it into a land and create 3 treasures, which is 3 artifacts on the board. Brainstone, it is a draw spell. I put it in here because it is an artifact, but it is basically a brainstorm. A little bit of extra mana value. This is a nice one to sacrifice to the transmute artifact. You just throw the counters off, sack it, and then you're reduced by 2. Prophetic Prism, just a way to draw some cards. There's a couple other fun ones here that I wanted to mention. Oh, you know what? We'll do the protection spells first. There's not many in this deck. You're just trying to generally do bigger things than your opponent and force them to respond to all the mana that you're using. But Defense Grid is one. Turnabout is another. You can tap all your opponent's creatures down if you need a fog. Tap their lands down if you want to go through without worrying about counter magic. Same with Swan Song. Gigadros, tap any permanent. You can tap their lands, tap their creatures. Moment's Peace as 2 fog effects on 1 card for when you need just a couple extra turns. Okay, now some of the enjoyable cards in the deck. Fall from Favor works really well with Oath of Druids because it leaves a creature around. It's tapped, you're drawing an extra card, their creature isn't untapping. Now, if you're in a swarm board state, yeah, this is going to be a problem. It's not going to work so well for you. But if they have one big guy, you can tap it down, make sure your Oath triggers because they have a creature and you didn't need to worry about wiping the board or something. So I really like Fall from Favor. Savine's Reclamation, another good thing to have in your deck. It can return the Time Vault, it can return Rings of Brighthearth, they can do almost anything you want, can return Planeswalkers. And there's an advantage in that you can flash it back if you mill a lot of your library over to the Oath of Druids. You can cast Savine's Reclamation, hopefully you've milled it, and get back whatever you need in that graveyard, that entirely new hand, basically, you have. Argivian Find, just a little bit of artifact enchantment recursion. And the Rod of Absorption. This is a new card. I don't know how well it is. I haven't been able to play it yet. But I think this card definitely has a lot of potential. It's basically a Leyline of the Void for instants or sorceries. Any player casting any instants or sorceries get exiled by this card. And then for X and tap, you can sacrifice it to cast X mana value of those cards. So, fun inclusion. But I've never actually been able to cast it. I did build this deck around the Oath of Druids, Emrakul, and just that ability to, well, if I'm already using things to find lands, I might as well have some other really good options to get. And that's how this deck came about. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit different because this is a deck type I don't play often, but it definitely has the potential to get there with infinite turns, infinite attacks, and cheesing some big dummies into play. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you guys liked it, and have a good one.